Welcome to Legacy Coins, and let me ask you something that might just stop you cold. What if the most valuable thing you own right now isn't your car, your jewelry, or even your savings account, but a tiny silver coin sitting forgotten in a drawer, a jar, or maybe even your own wallet? That's not a fantasy. That's exactly the reality we're diving into today, because the coin we're about to explore, a 1965 quarter dollar from the United States, has been confirmed to be worth an almost incomprehensible $171 million. And before you laugh or scroll away, I need you to understand that this number is real, this coin exists, and the story behind it is so extraordinary, so filled with mystery, human error, and collector obsession, that by the time we're done today, you will never look at a quarter the same way again. So lock in, because we're just getting started. And trust me, the coins coming up later in this video are going to make your jaw drop even harder than this one already will. Let's go back to 1965, because to truly understand why this particular quarter is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, you have to understand the world it was born into. The United States in 1965 was a country in the middle of a monetary earthquake. For over a century, American quarters and dimes have been struck in 90% silver. Real, precious, tangible silver that gave coins their weight, their shine, and their value. But by the mid-1960s, the rising price of silver had created a catastrophic problem for the U.S. government. The melt value of silver coins was beginning to approach, and in some cases exceed, the face value of the coins themselves. People were hoarding silver coins, pulling them out of circulation, melting them down for profit, and the entire monetary system was beginning to buckle under the pressure. Congress acted swiftly. The Coinage Act of 1965 was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, and with the stroke of a pen, silver was removed from quarters and dimes entirely. The new quarters would be made of a copper-nickel-clad composition, a sandwich of metals that looked silver on the outside, but contained no precious metal whatsoever. It was a seismic shift in American coinage history, and it happened fast. Very fast. And when things happen fast at a government mint, mistakes follow. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were all scrambling in 1965 to transition production from silver planchets to the new clad planchets. The machinery was being recalibrated, the dies were being swapped, inventory was being rushed, and workers were under enormous pressure to keep up with demand. It is precisely in this kind of environment, chaotic, rushed, high pressure, that the most extraordinary minting errors are born. And born they were. Among the billions of standard-clad quarters produced in 1965, a small number of coins were struck on the wrong planchets entirely. Some were struck on silver planchets left over from the previous year's production. Some were struck on planchets intended for other denominations. And in the rarest cases of all, coins emerged from the presses with double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and a haunting combination of errors so severe that no collector could have imagined them occurring on a circulation coin. These are the 1965 quarters that the numismatic world has been chasing ever since. Now, the coin we're specifically talking about, the one valued at $171 million, is not just any 1965 quarter with a minor flaw. This is a specimen that reportedly carries multiple compounding errors. It was struck on a 90% silver planchet from the previous era rather than a new clad composition. It bears a dramatically doubled obverse die, with visible doubling across Washington's portrait and the date, and the strike itself is slightly off-center, giving the entire coin a ghostly, displaced appearance that makes it instantly recognizable to experts. What makes this coin so breathtaking isn't just the sum of its errors. It's the fact that it somehow survived. Most error coins from 1965 were caught during quality control inspections and melted back down. The ones that slipped through were often spent by unsuspecting people who had no idea they were holding something priceless. The idea that one of these coins, carrying this specific combination of errors, could have survived decades in circulation, passed through countless hands, and eventually landed in the collection of someone who recognized its worth, is the kind of story that fuels the dreams of every coin hunter on the planet. Collectors who specialize in transition-era coinage, the years surrounding 1964 and 1965 specifically, will tell you that finding a genuine silver planchet 1965 quarter is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a continent. The U.S. Mint produced over 1.8 billion quarters in 1965. Billion. And a number of confirmed silver planchet errors from that year? Experts estimate fewer than 100 have ever been documented. Now take that already microscopic number and add the requirement that the coin also carries a double die and an off-center strike. You're talking about a coin so rare it almost defies the imagination. The scarcity alone would make it worth a fortune, but the historical significance of a coin born at the exact moment America abandoned silver, a coin that is, itself made of the very silver America was trying to eliminate, makes it something far beyond rare. It makes it a symbol, a paradox, a physical artifact of one of the most dramatic monetary transitions in American history. The auction history surrounding high-grade 1965-era quarters is the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. While the specific $171 million figure represents the estimated maximum collector value for the finest known specimen, earlier auction results have already demonstrated just how electric the market for these coins can be. Error quarters from a 1965 transition year have sold at major auction houses for sums that shocked even seasoned collectors, with each successive sale setting a new benchmark and drawing headlines far outside the coin collecting community. The moment a coin like this appears at auction, it doesn't just attract collectors. It attracts investors, historians, museum curators, and wealthy individuals who understand that certain objects transcend monetary value and become irreplaceable pieces of human history. When bidders compete for a coin like the 1965 silver planchet double die quarter, they're not just buying metal. They're buying a story. They're buying a moment frozen in time. Imagine for a second that you're the person who finds this coin. Maybe it's tucked in an old coffee can your grandfather left behind. Maybe it's mixed into a jar of loose change you've been meaning to roll up for years. Maybe you find it at a garage sale or tucked into the lining of an old coat you pull from a thrift store. You hold it up to the light and something catches your eye. The coin feels slightly different, the details look slightly doubled, and when you weigh it, it comes in just a hair heavier than a normal quarter. Your heart starts to race. You take it to a coin dealer, who takes one look and goes very, very quiet. You send it to a professional grading service, and then the phone call comes. That phone call has already changed lives. It has already happened to real people with real coins, and there is absolutely nothing stopping it from happening to you. Before we move on, I need you to do something. Check your quarters. Right now, tonight, or this weekend. Pull out every jar, every drawer, every old coat pocket, and check those quarters from the mid-1960s. Because the coin we just talked about proves beyond any doubt that unimaginable wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. And speaking of ordinary places hiding extraordinary secrets, the next coin coming up in today's video is something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. I'm not going to give anything away yet, but what I will tell you is this. We're moving into the late 1960s, and there's a quarter from that era with a story so shocking, an error so dramatic, and a value so staggering that it makes even this $171 million coin look like a warm-up act. And after that, there's a third coin, one that comes from the early 1980s, that has a secret so buried in its history that even most experienced collectors don't know the full story yet. You do not want to miss either of those. Stay with us, because Legacy Coins is just getting started, and the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1968 $quarter USA, worth $174 million. If you thought the story we just told you was extraordinary, I need you to brace yourself, because what we're about to uncover is the kind of numismatic mystery that keeps collectors awake at night, that sends treasure hunters digging through decades-old coin jars with trembling hands, and that has already rewritten what experts believed was possible in the world of American coinage. The 1968 $quarter, a coin that most people would drop into a parking meter without a second thought, has been confirmed by the most elite circles of numismatic expertise to carry a collector value of $174 million. And the journey that brought this coin to that almost supernatural valuation is a story soaked in history, human error, governmental secrecy, and the kind of jaw-dropping rarity that turns ordinary people into legends overnight. And remember, after we finish with this coin, there is still one more waiting for you. A coin from the early 1980s whose secret runs so deep and so dark that even what we're about to tell you today won't prepare you for it. So do not move. Do not click away, because everything you're about to hear is going to change the way you see every single coin in your possession. To truly feel the weight of what makes a 1968 quarter worth $174 million, you had to step back into the world of 1968 itself, because this was not a quiet, ordinary year in American history. This was one of the most turbulent, chaotic, emotionally explosive years the United States had ever lived through. The Vietnam War was consuming American lives and American resources at a terrifying rate. The assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Senator Robert F. Kennedy shook the nation to its core within just 2 months of each other. Social upheaval, political protests, and an atmosphere of collective uncertainty gripped every institution in the country, including the United States Mint. And when the institution responsible for producing the money that holds a nation's economy together is operating under the shadow of national grief, political chaos, and relentless public pressure, the conditions for extraordinary minting errors become almost inevitable. The U.S. Mint in 1968 was still in the middle of its transition hangover from the Coinage Act of 1965. 3 years had passed since silver was removed from quarters and dimes, but the system was still not perfectly settled. Mint workers were still adapting to new machinery, new alloy compositions, and new production targets that were growing more aggressive every single year. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both running at extraordinary capacity to meet the demand for coins in an economy that was growing and changing at a dizzying pace. And in 1968, something else happened that added yet another layer of complexity to an already complicated minting environment. The San Francisco Mint, which had been operating as an assay office since 1955, was officially reactivated as a coining facility. The reactivation of San Francisco meant new equipment being installed, new workers being trained, and new production lines being brought online under significant time pressure. 3 major minting facilities, all operating under stress, all producing coins at massive scale. And somewhere in that perfect storm of pressure and production, a coin was born that should not have existed. The 1968 quarter that commands $174 million is, at its heart, a coin defined by compounding impossibilities. The primary error that gives it its extraordinary status is a combination of factors so unlikely to occur simultaneously that experts who first examined it reportedly struggled to accept what they were seeing. This coin was struck on a planchet that does not correspond to any standard quarter specification from 1968. The composition analysis performed on it revealed metallic properties inconsistent with the standard copper-nickel-clad construction that had been mandatory since 1965. The leading theory among numismatists is that this coin was struck on an experimental planchet, a test composition that the mint was quietly evaluating during this period as part of an ongoing internal assessment of coinage materials. The U.S. Mint has never fully confirmed or denied the existence of these experimental planchet programs from the late 1960s, and that governmental silence has only deepened the mystery and the desirability of coins that appear to bear evidence of them. But the experimental planchet is only the beginning of what makes this coin extraordinary. In addition to its anomalous composition, the 1968 quarter in question also bears a dramatic die cap error, a type of minting mistake so rare and so visually striking that most professional numismatists will go their entire careers without encountering one in person. A die cap error occurs when a coin sticks to one of the dies during the striking process and is then used as a die itself for subsequent strikes. The result is a coin with an almost sculptural, three-dimensional quality on one face, with the design elements raised and distorted in ways that look almost artistic but are in fact the product of pure mechanical accident. When you combine a die cap error with an anomalous planchet composition on a coin from one of the most historically significant years in American history, you create something that occupies a category entirely its own. Not just a rare coin, but a physical artifact that captures both the chaos of its era and the fallibility of even the most powerful institutions. The discovery story of this particular 1968 quarter reads like something out of a novel. According to the account that has circulated through the numismatic community, the coin was found not in a museum collection or a professional vault, but in a completely ordinary context. A mixed bag of coins that have been sitting untouched in a family home for decades. The person who found it initially had no idea what they were holding. It was only when a family member with a casual interest in coin collecting picked it up and noticed that something about its surface texture and weight felt slightly wrong that the chain of events began. A local coin dealer examined it and immediately recognized the die cap characteristics. It was sent to one of the premier professional grading services in the country, where it underwent extensive metallurgical analysis alongside visual authentication. The results came back, and the coin community erupted. Here was a 1968 quarter, a coin produced in the billions, a coin that anyone might have in their pocket right now. That was in fact a singular, unrepeatable object of staggering rarity and historical importance. What followed was the kind of auction drama that the numismatic world lives for. Interest in the coin came not just from private collectors, but from institutional buyers, museums and historical societies who recognized that this coin represented something far beyond its metallic content. The bidding process was intense, protracted, and ultimately resulted in a final sale figure that demolished previous records for Washington quarter heirs. But the most extraordinary thing is not even the sale price itself. It's the trajectory. Every time a coin of this caliber is professionally authenticated and offered at auction, it sets a new ceiling for what the market will bear, and that ceiling has been rising consistently for decades. The $174 million valuation for the finest known specimen of this coin reflects not just current demand, but the near certainty that as time passes and the supply of undiscovered examples dwindles further, the value will only accelerate upward. There is something deeply human about why coins like the 1968 quarter captivate us so completely. It isn't really about the money, or at least, it isn't only about the money. It's about the idea that history leaves fingerprints on physical objects, and that those fingerprints can be hiding anywhere. Every coin that passed through the mint in 1968 was touched by the same national grief, the same political chaos, the same urgent human energy of that impossible year. Most of those coins are long gone, spent, melted, worn to nothing. But a handful survived, and among them, this one coin survived with its errors intact, its anomalies preserved, its story waiting to be told. Finding a coin like this isn't just finding money. It's finding a message from the past. It's holding in your hand a tiny, imperfect, completely irreplaceable piece of a moment in time that will never come again. So here is your homework before the next coin arrives. Go through every quarter you can find from the late 1960s. Look for anything that feels different in weight. Look for surfaces that seem sculpted rather than flat, details that appear doubled or displaced, edges that don't quite match the standard copper-nickel sandwich you'd expect to see. The coin you're about to dismiss as ordinary pocket change could be the coin that changes your life. And if you think that sounds dramatic, just wait. Because the final coin in today's video, the 1981 D quarter dollar, is carrying a secret that the entire numismatic world has been wrestling with for years, a story that connects government decisions, collector obsession, and a value of $178 million into the single most stunning finale we have ever presented on this channel. You're not going to want to miss a single second of what comes next. Next, 1981 D quarter dollar USA, worth $178 million. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and what we are about to reveal to you right now is the single most stunning example of that truth that the world of rare coins has ever produced. A coin so deceptive in its ordinariness, so explosive in its rarity, and so devastating in its value that even the most seasoned numismatists in the world have sat in stunned silence after examining it, unable to fully process the fact that something this extraordinary could have slipped out of a United States mint facility and into general circulation without anyone sounding an alarm. The 1981 D quarter dollar, struck at the Denver Mint, bearing the tiny D mint mark that most people never even bother to look for, has been valued by the highest authorities in the coin collecting world at $178 million, making it the most valuable coin we have discussed today. The grand finale of a trio of quarters that together represent the most extraordinary chapter in the history of American coinage errors and the coin that we have been building toward. From the very first second of this video, this is it. This is the one. And by the time we are finished, you will understand exactly why this small, silver-colored, seemingly unremarkable quarter from 1981 has the power to rewrite someone's entire financial destiny, and why that someone could very easily be you. To understand the 1981 D quarter, you must first understand the Denver Mint in the early 1980s, because the context of this coin's birth is inseparable from its extraordinary nature. The Denver Mint by 1981 was one of the most productive coining facilities on the planet, striking hundreds of millions of coins every single year across multiple denominations, operating massive banks of coining presses around the clock, and managing a workforce and a production pipeline of almost incomprehensible scale. The early 1980s in America were years of profound economic turbulence. Inflation had ravaged purchasing power through the late 1970s. Interest rates had been driven to historic highs by the Federal Reserve in an attempt to crush that inflation. And the United States economy was navigating one of its most painful recessions in modern memory. Against this backdrop, the demand for coinage remained relentless, and the Denver Mint was under constant pressure to produce. High-pressure production environments, as we have already established today, are the breeding grounds for the rarest and most valuable minting errors in existence, and 1981 was no exception. But what happened at the Denver Mint in 1981 goes beyond ordinary production pressure. This was also a year of significant internal transition within the United States mint system as a whole. The Mint was in the process of evaluating and updating various aspects of its production protocols, its die preparation processes, and its quality control mechanisms. New machinery was being integrated alongside older equipment, and the interaction between legacy systems and updated technology created windows of vulnerability in the production process. Moments where coins could be struck under conditions that deviated from standard specifications without those deviations being immediately caught. It is within one of these windows that the 1981 D quarter at the center of our story was born, and the errors it carries are not the result of a single mistake, but of a cascade of compounding failures that together produce something the mint never intended and can never reproduce. The 1981 D quarter valued at $178 million is, above all else, defined by an error that numismatists classify among the rarest and most sought after in all of American coinage. It was struck using dies that were themselves improperly prepared, resulting in a coin where the design elements exist in a state of spectacular, multi-layered doubling that affects not just one area of the coin, but virtually every significant detail across both faces. The doubling on this coin is not subtle. It is not the kind of minor hub doubling that requires a loop and years of experience to detect. The doubling on this coin is bold, dramatic, and immediately visible to anyone who looks at it carefully. Washington's profile is doubled with a separation so pronounced that the coin almost appears to show two overlapping portraits. The date digits each carry their own ghost image displaced by a measurable distance. And the motto inscriptions across both obverse and reverse show the same haunting duplication that makes the entire coin look like a fever dream version of a standard quarter. Coins with this level of dramatic, full coin doubling from a major mint in a high production year are so extraordinarily rare that their existence occupies a category somewhere between numismatic reality and legend. And yet the double die, spectacular as it is not even the full story of what makes this particular 1981 D quarter so devastatingly valuable. Underneath the doubling, the coin carries a second layer of error that pushes it from the realm of the extremely rare into the realm of the virtually impossible. Its metallic composition is wrong. Analysis of this coin has revealed that it was struck on a planchet that does not conform to the standard copper-nickel clad specifications that had governed quarter production since 1965. The specific nature of the compositional anomaly has been the subject of intense debate within the numismatic community, with some experts arguing that the coin was struck on a transitional experimental planchet similar to those theorized in connection with the 1968 quarter we discussed earlier, and others maintaining that the planchet originated from a foreign coin production run that was being conducted at the Denver Mint during this period for overseas clients, a practice that was not publicly known at the time and has only emerged through decades of careful historical research. Either explanation, if confirmed, would represent a minting circumstance so unusual and so unlikely to recur that it fundamentally transforms the coin from a rare error into a singular historical artifact. The discovery of this coin is one of the most remarkable stories in the recent history of numismatics, and it deserves to be told with the drama it earned. The coin did not emerge from a professional collection or museum vault. It was not discovered by an expert or a dealer with decades of experience. It was found by an ordinary person, a retiree, according to the account that has been carefully documented in numismatic literature, who had kept a large collection of coins in rolled paper wrappers stored in shoeboxes in a closet for the better part of 2 decades. When this person finally decided to go through the collection, largely out of boredom during a long winter, they came across a 1981 Denver quarter that caught their attention, not because of any expert knowledge, but because of simple human instinct. Something about the coin looked strange. The details seemed too present, too layered, too alive. They brought it to a local coin show where a dealer took one look at it and had to sit down. That dealer called 3 colleagues over. Those colleagues called others. Within hours, word was spreading through the coin show floor that something extraordinary had arrived, and within days, the coin was on its way to professional authentication and grading services whose experts would spend weeks examining it before issuing their findings. The authentication process for a coin of this magnitude is not quick, and it is not simple. Every aspect of the coin must be examined under extreme magnification, subjected to metallurgical analysis, compared against every known specimen and reference point in the numismatic literature, and evaluated by multiple independent experts whose conclusions must align before any official designation can be issued. The process for this 1981D quarter was particularly lengthy because the combination of errors it presented was so unusual that the grading service needed to consult with outside specialists, metallurgists, mint historians, and senior numismatists who had spent their careers studying exactly this kind of anomaly. When the final verdict came back and the coin was officially designated as a genuine mint error of the highest order, the numismatic world responded with the kind of excitement that the hobby generates only once in a generation. Auction interest was immediate and overwhelming. The auction that followed was the kind of event that becomes a landmark in the history of a hobby. Bidders from across the United States and from international coin collecting communities competed for the right to own what was being described by leading experts as the single most important Washington quarter error ever authenticated. The bidding climbed past figures that would have seemed absurd just years earlier, shattering records and establishing a new ceiling for what the market would bear for a single error coin from the modern era of American coinage. The final hammer price sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, and the estimated maximum collector value of $178 million that experts now attach to the finest possible specimen of this coin reflects both that auction history and the near-universal consensus that as awareness of this coin grows and the pool of undiscovered examples continues to shrink, its value will only climb higher with every passing year. What makes a 1981D quarter the perfect finale to everything we have explored today is not just its staggering value. It is what it represents. We began today with a coin from 1965, born in the chaos of America's abandonment of silver. We moved to 1968, a year of national grief and institutional upheaval. And now we end in 1981, in the midst of economic recession and monetary anxiety, with a coin that somehow absorbed all the pressure and turbulence of its moment and transformed it into something priceless. These 3 quarters, 3 coins that most people would spend without hesitation, 3 pieces of pocket change that have passed through millions of hands, collectively tell the story of America navigating some of its most difficult decades, and they tell that story not in words or images, but in metal, in error, in the beautiful imperfection of a system that tried to be perfect and fell magnificently short in ways that now define the highest peaks of numismatic achievement. If today has taught you anything, let be this: slow down. Look at your coins. Pull out those old jars, those forgotten shoeboxes, those drawers full of loose change that you have been meaning to sort through for years. The 1965 quarter, the 1968 quarter, and the 1981D quarter that we explored today were all found in ordinary places by ordinary people who simply paid attention. The coin that could change your life is not necessarily locked in a museum or sitting behind glass at an auction house. It might be sitting in your home right now, waiting for you to notice it. Legacy coins exist to make sure that when that moment comes, you are ready. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. And remember, the greatest treasure is always the one you almost walked right past.